All right, so get ready for this one because today we're going to be diving deep into the world of telekinesis
Telekinesis.
in VR. I know.
Yeah.
Pretty wild, right? We're talking about scientists, researchers trying to make moving stuff with just your mind like a real thing, or at least virtually.
What's really interesting is they didn't just start like throwing tech at the problem.
Right.
They actually looked at how telekinesis is shown in fiction
Huh.
to get a better understanding of why it's so compelling to us, you know?
Wait, hold on. They actually studied science fiction? You mean like Star Wars and like X-Men, that kind of thing?
Exactly. They went through a ton of it. Like
Wow.
72
Wow.
different works of fiction, everything from movies to books,
Yeah.
comics, all of that, just to see if they could find common threads, you know?
Oh, that's fascinating. What, like, did they crack the code for real life telekinesis hidden in some comic book somewhere?
Well, no secret formula.
Okay.
But they did find some themes that just kept popping up over and over
What
again.
would.
Hand gestures were one.
Okay.
Another was this intense focus, and often you would see the characters show visible strain, like they were really putting in effort.
Right.
And then there's those energy fields that would be surrounding the person and the object
Yeah.
being moved, you know?
So I'm trying to picture this in my mind.
Yeah,
Like those scenes where a Jedi is levitating something, with a focused gaze, maybe a slight gesture,
right.
and you can just feel like the energy
Yeah,
crackling around them.
exactly.
Yeah.
That feeling,
Right.
that sense of effort and agency
Yeah.
is exactly what these researchers wanted to recreate.
Hmm.
Even though, obviously, in VR, you're not actually physically touching anything.
Right, yeah. So how did they begin to try to make that happen? What kind of tech did they use to bring this into a VR experience?
Well, it's actually a pretty wild mix
Okay.
of tools.
Okay.
You've got the VR headset, of course, but then
Yeah.
they added Vive trackers to pick up the hand
Uh-huh.
movement and a leap motion sensor to get even more detail on those hand gestures.
Oh, wow.
And they even use eye tracking
Whoa.
to measure how concentrated the person was by their blink rate.
So it's like they're trying to capture like every thought and like every intention that you have.
As much as they can.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But how do they actually make it feel like telekinesis though? Like how do you get
Right,
that sense of, strain, of energy
right.
that we see in all the fiction?
This is where things get really clever.
Okay.
They use these EMG sensors
Okay.
to pick up on, like the tiny muscle tension
Mm.
in your arm.
Wow.
And, get this, they use heaters.
Heaters.
Yeah.
Wait, seriously,
Place on the skin
to make you believe
to simulate.
you're moving things with your mind?
Well, yeah.
That is crazy.
It sounds crazy, but think about it.
Okay.
When we exert ourselves or concentrate,
Right.
we get warmer.
Yeah.
It's a natural response. So
Mhm.
by adding that warmth, they're sort of tapping into a real physiological response,
Oh,
which makes it more believable.
that is brilliant. It's like they're kind of hacking our brains by mimicking how our bodies
Yeah,
react to real effort.
exactly.
That's awesome. So they're gathering all this data. They've got the hand movements, the eye focus, the muscle tension, even body heat.
Mm-hmm.
What do they actually do with it?
They put it all into a system that turns those inputs into a believable experience in the virtual world.
Okay.
For example, they have this equation
Okay.
that figures out how a virtual object should move based on the user's hand position, your speed,
Mm-hmm.
all while factoring in that concentration level from the blink rate.
So the more focused I am, the more control I have over the object. Okay.
Exactly. But it's not just about, moving stuff around. It's
Yeah.
about making that sense of telekinesis convincing.
Right.
And to do that,
Mm.
they came up with 3 key elements based on, that research into fiction. Concentration, we talked about that,
Yeah.
strain,
Okay.
and something they call sense of energy,
Sense of energy.
or SE for short.
Gotcha. So it's like they're taking all those things we see in science fiction, like the gestures, the focusing, the strain, the energy fields,
Yeah.
and they're building those into the actual experience.
Exactly, taking inspiration from fiction and making it a framework for their VR system.
That's so cool. So to test it all out, what did they do? Did they have people like levitate spaceships in VR or something?
Well, not quite.
Yeah.
They went with something a bit simpler,
Okay.
but still clever. Block stacking.
Block stack.
Block stacking.
Okay. I'm intrigued. What is it about block stacking?
It's simple enough that they can really isolate and study the effects of each of those 3 elements.
I see.
Concentration, strain, and sense of energy on the user's whole experience.
So they could, like, you know, turn those elements on and off,
Exactly.
see how people reacted, and really get into the nitty-gritty of what makes virtual telekinesis, believable.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm hooked. Tell me more about this experiment.
Okay, so they had people move virtual blocks
Uh-huh.
to specific places, but they could only use their telekinesis
Oh,
to do it.
okay.
But here's the key.
Mhm.
For each attempt,
Mm.
they would change things up.
Okay.
Sometimes the heaters would be on, sometimes off.
Right.
Sometimes they'd have to clench their fists to,
Right, to simulate.
simulate the strain. Sometimes not.
Gotcha.
All to see how those little changes would impact their perception of using telekinesis.
Wow, that is
Yeah.
super clever. So what did they find? Did all of those, like,
Right.
science fiction tropes actually, like, hold up
Yeah.
when they were tested in VR?
It was really interesting, actually.
Yeah.
Strain and sense of energy were super important.
Okay.
People felt a much stronger sense of actually doing telekinesis
Right.
when they had to, put in virtual effort
Uh-huh.
and when they felt that warmth.
Huh. So our brains, like, need those
Yeah.
physical cues
They seem to, yeah.
to really, like, buy into the illusion.
Yeah.
Interesting. What about concentration? Did staring intensely at the blocks make a difference?
That one was a little more complicated.
Okay.
They found that how effective concentration was depended on other things, like how heavy the objects felt
Okay.
and how difficult the task was.
I see.
So, if you're trying to lift a feather versus a boulder,
Yeah.
your concentration might have a different impact.
Okay, so it's not just about, like,
Yeah.
how hard you're staring. It's, like, the
Well,
whole context.
It shows how connected our physical sensations and mental focus are
Right.
when it comes to that feeling of being in control, that sense of agency.
Right. That's incredible. My mind is officially blown. We've covered the inspiration, the tech they use, the experiment, and the really fascinating findings.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, why does all of this matter? Is it just like a really cool way to play with blocks in VR?
That's a great question, and the answer is a definite no.
Okay, I knew it. I knew there had to be more to this story.
Oh, there's so much more to this.
Okay.
This is just the beginning.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready. Tell me more.
Let's dive in.
Okay.
This research could be huge for helping people with limited mobility.
Really?
This tech could help them regain a sense of control over their own movements,
Oh, wow.
even if their bodies can't physically do those things in real life.
That's incredible. So it's like giving them the power to move again,
Yeah,
even if it's just virtually for now.
exactly.
What else? What else could we use this for?
Oh, tons of things. Think about like training
Yeah.
for complex jobs, like really difficult stuff
Yeah.
where you have to be super careful. Imagine surgeons doing surgery from far away,
Wow.
or astronauts controlling robot arms up in space.
Right.
Even, those people who have to disarm bombs,
Right.
they could work from a distance and be much safer.
That's amazing. So much safer.
Yeah.
So we're talking about controlling robots with our minds and doing surgery from miles away.
Yeah, basically.
This is like straight out of science fiction.
It is pretty wild.
But what about understanding, like, our own brains? Does this research tell us anything about how our brains work?
Oh, absolutely. This could totally change how we understand how our brains create our sense of reality.
Oh,
Like by
yeah.
messing with these sensory inputs,
Right.
we can figure out the mechanisms of how we experience the world.
So we're not just talking about building cool tech. We're pushing the limits of what we know about consciousness.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It's like exploring what it means to be human
Mm-hmm.
in a world where real and virtual are kind of becoming the same thing.
Exactly. Got it.
It's pretty amazing that we started talking about telekinesis and now we're here
Yeah.
thinking about consciousness and the future and all this stuff.
It's a deep rabbit hole.
It is.
This is what happens when you explore these things,
Yeah.
asking questions and pushing those boundaries.
Right.
That's how you get the breakthroughs.
And sometimes it's those crazy ideas.
Of telekinesis that lead to the really amazing stuff.
Yeah.
The things that really can change people's lives.
Oh, totally agree.
I'm curious, if we can make telekinesis feel real,
Yeah.
what other impossible things could we make people feel in the future? Like, could we simulate flying or having superpowers?
I love that question.
Right.
Because it really does feel like the possibilities are endless.
They do.
As we learn more about the brain and get better at making these virtual experiences so real,
Right.
who knows what we'll be able to feel and experience.
It's kind of exciting,
Yeah?
but also a little scary.
There is, yeah.
Think about a future where, what's real and what's not
Yeah.
is totally blurred.
It's a big question for all of us.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that we're the ones who are shaping this future.
Right.
We're not just along for the ride.
We're the ones making the choices.
Exactly.
It's
It's like innovations.
and our conversations
Yeah.
about the impact of those innovations.
That will really determine what this future looks like.
It's a responsibility we all share.
Absolutely.
To think critically about where we're headed and what kind of world we want to create.
It's a lot to consider.
It is, but it's crucial,
Yeah.
especially with something as powerful as this technology.
Okay, so as we start to wrap up this deep dive into telekinesis and VR,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with a final thought.
Okay.
If we can already create this believable feeling of telekinesis, what impossible sensations will we be able to experience in the future?
That is the question, isn't it?
And just as importantly, how can we make sure those experiences are used to make a better world for everyone?
Exactly. That's the key.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, about all those possibilities and
Yeah.
what they mean for the future.
It really does. And, we can't just get caught up in the shiny new tech without thinking about the downsides, too.
Exactly, the good and the bad.
Right. And that's one of the things this telekinesis research highlights so well. It's more than just a cool tech demo.
Right.
It shows us where we might be headed, this future where what's real and what's virtual, they kind of blend together.
And as we get closer to that future,
Yeah,
there's some big questions we need to ask.
absolutely.
Like, where do we draw the line? What are the ethical things we have to figure out?
Right. And how do we use these powerful technologies in a good way, a responsible way that benefits everyone?
These are the kind of things we need to be talking about as a society.
Yeah, finding that balance is key.
Right.
Embracing the amazing things that might be possible,
Right.
but being aware of the risks, too.
Well said. So, to all our listeners out there, as we wrap up this deep dive into telekinesis and VR, here's a final thought to leave you with. If we can make telekinesis feel this real,
Yeah,
what other impossible sensations might be coming our way in the future?
that is the question, isn't it?
And just as important, how do we ensure that those experiences are used to make a better world for all of us?
Such a crucial point.
It really is. It's a future full of amazing potential, but also some big challenges.
Definitely.
And remember, we're the ones who are shaping it.
We all are.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of virtual telekinesis.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you learned something new, had your mind stretched, and maybe walked away with more questions than answers.
Because that's what the best deep dives do.
They do. Until next time, fellow deep divers, keep your minds open, your curiosity piqued, and those imaginations running wild.
Absolutely. We'll be back soon with another fascinating exploration.
Into the depths of knowledge and all the amazing possibilities out there. Bye for now.